All right. Good morning. Welcome, everybody, to Accuracy in America. I'm your host, Don Irvine, joined by my co host, Brian McNichol, who is in Georgia, he said.
Yeah, greetings from southern Georgia on my way back to the cold core northeast. We just came from Florida where it was very, very cold. So I'm the one person every time I go to Florida, it gets like record breaking cold. It's like that. I don't know what it is.
But I mean, you were in Louisiana, though, right?
Yeah, we went to Louisiana and then we went to Florida and then we're coming back.
Yeah, and I mean, was it in the 70s or thereabouts?
It was in the 80s. Louisiana. Woo! In fact, one of the days there was the hottest December day Shreveport had ever recorded. It was like 86 degrees.
Wow.
I mean, it was just gorgeous.
we can deal with that, right?
Yes, indeed.
So I think both of us have got. Anyway, so I've got this cough, but it's been getting better. So this is it. This is our last show of the year on the last day of the year. We don't get to do this double whammy very often, but it's great.
Yeah, the thing I hate about it is that, like, I've been using this thing all year where people say Trump is the most corrupt president ever, and I was like, he's not even the most corrupt president this year. And now I have to come up with something new.
Yeah, something new for 2026. All right, and also as I looked at the National Days calendar, one of them is today is the National Make Up Your Mind Day. So I thought that was appropriate. December 31st, make up your mind. Have you ever been accused of not being able to make up your mind, Brian?
No, I usually make up my mind, right or wrong. Lots of times wrong.
Yeah, I think I've been known to waffle here and there sometimes because, like, you're like, oh, should I do this or not? But I probably get more criticism for the decisions I make that people don't agree with. So
yeah, I will say this about this. Like, one of my basketball teams this year, I could not decide what man-to-man offense to use. And I went back and I kept, okay, we won't do man-to-man and we'll do zone this, we'll do presses, we'll do defense, we'll do fundamentals, we'll do, right, putting off the decision, right? Well, what you need to do is you need to put it in as soon as possible so you can practice it the maximum amount of times before you have to do it in a game. But I just couldn't decide. So I finally sort of let someone decide for me, and then I had to go back and change it all out. So I hope those poor kids don't get schizophrenic or whatever out of this. But
you're scarred for life. What I can say.
That's right.
All right. So we got a few topics to cover today, and we'll try to keep it relatively tight. You've got to check out that hotel, so we're not going to keep you to the full hour. Trump, during the time that we've been off, Trump has issued a strike against ISIS in Nigeria. Right. Once again, another forceful action by the president. I mean, this is probably where his strength really lies on is in this foreign policy arena, and kind of like, don't mess with us, and then don't start messing with other countries where we want to protect certain interests, I think.
Right. The Boko Haram and the ISIS, there's reorganizing as ISIS. They've been killing Christians, murdering priests, murdering whole congregations, attacking people at church and so forth for 10 years and more now. I know Tony Perkins at Family Life, what's it called? What's Tony Perkins thing called? Has been, on and on and on about this.
The Family Research Center? Still doing that? Family Research Center?
Family Research Center, right. Right. Fellow Louisiana guy from Baton Rouge. He's been talking about this for a long time, campaigning, trying to get the government to do something about it. So it's not a new problem, but Trump has gotten the government in Nigeria. He said to them, really bad things are going to happen if you don't deal with this problem. And they're like, oh, what do we do? And he's like, well, I can handle some of it for you. And so that's what happened here. Like, he did this with the approval and foreknowledge of the Nigerian government. I don't think a lot of people understand that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there'd be a lot of portrayals of him just being this kind of reckless interventionist, doing this. But I mean, they did this with a lot of forethought. I mean,
They did a lot of forethought. A lot of people have been campaigning, pushing for this for a long time. And and if we're not, one of the things he said about this is like, why do we amass military power if we're not going to use it, right? And this is one where, saving Christians, saving people who are being killed solely because of their faith. Is there a more, if we're going to do foreign policy like this, I can't imagine a more just cause.
That's right. All right. Okay. So then we have another international matter there too, which is that he's warning Iran on nukes and everything. So once again, another display of like, if you do this, we might do this. So be careful.
Right. The Iranians are starting to make noise about rebuilding their nuclear program, and so that's what this is all about. They're trying to get. So which tells you that, Trump was accurate when he said that he had destroyed it or seriously, injured it or whatever. He told you what he was going to do and he did it, kept a promise. I think he's on the right track on that.
Yeah. Now, I don't think a lot of people are going to necessarily be upset about this thing about, warning him on the rebuilding of the nuclear program in Iran. I mean, Iran's not exactly someone that we adore.
Right. The argument is, and it's coming, a lot of it's friendly fire. It's from the right. It's like, whoa, we're America first. Why are we worried about what's going on in Iraq? In Iran, right? Well, if you're older than about 15, then you should understand that, like, since 1979, we've been more or less at war with Iran. And it's been mostly a proxy war, but if you're tired of fighting Israel, you're tired of fighting for Israel, which that's what they say, right? Then you should be for cleaning this up, because the reason this is where like it is because, they're attacking Israel. They're the river to the sea people, right? They don't want Israel to ever exist under any, pretext at all. So, if you want to protect Israel, or you want Israel to continue to exist and the Jews to not all be killed, then these are the people you have to protect them from. These are the ones with the money and the sovereign state and the wherewithal to actually try to do serious damage. So their nuclear program was indeed crippled by what Trump did, and now they're trying to rebuild it. And he's telling them, you're at a cornerstone. At a crossroads, right? You can either rebuild it and be at odds with us again, or you can take this opportunity to do the right thing. The current government of Iran may not get a whole lot of say in the matter, because apparently there are protests erupting all over the country, and the regular army, not the Republican Guard, but the regular army, their loyalty to the government is no longer undoubted or whatever, unquestioned or whatever. So it's interesting days in Iran, and we could see some changes there soon. Of course, I know people have been saying that for a long time, but
yeah, I think there's a lot of us been waiting for regime change for quite a while. But
yeah,
I don't know. Maybe it will occur.
Maybe this is the time. You never know.
Yeah, maybe it will. I didn't have it on the list, but I'm going to throw this in here too, because we're entering a new year, which also means that in about 2 months, we'll be hitting yet another anniversary for the Ukraine-Russia war. I guess there's some progress, but it's still, there's discussions going on there. Just, kind of as, if you looked at your crystal ball, do you think before that February 23rd or whatever it is, I think is the anniversary, do you think Trump will have figured a way to broker peace?
I don't know. The forces are pretty intransigent. The guy with no cards continues to insist that he not lose any land over this, and I don't necessarily blame him for that, because we should not be allowing countries to take land from other sovereign countries. So we should be preventing that. So, I don't know how that will go. He said there's another round of talks coming. I guess Zelensky was at Mar-a-Lago over the weekend. When the Democrats accused Trump of taking it off to golf, he was actually doing, rapid fire diplomacy with Zelensky and talking on the phone to Putin, trying to work out a deal. So, we'll see what comes from it, right? Trump's in a position now where he's got Ukraine in a position where it can make a lot of trouble for Russia until Russia figures this out, right? It looks like there was a whole, over the Christmas holidays, a whole refinery that was destroyed, a major refinery in Russia that was destroyed by drones from Ukraine. So, the cost of this are starting to add up for Putin, and it will be interesting to see, like, what does he do? Has he felt enough pain yet to make any kind of move?
As I look back, and particularly think about now that we're at the end of the year, this is that, Trump could easily just take a vacation, like everybody else does, right? Just take the holidays off and do this. But he's not doing it. He is actually meeting with world leaders.
Yeah.
He's just juggling all these people, all these balls in the air, and he's just continuing to work on all these foreign policy things. It's just, he's still concerned about trying to get to the end stage of the whole Hamas Israel thing. He's working on this. It's just really interesting to see. This is, yeah, he golfs a lot. So Barack Obama golfed a lot too.
Right.
But Trump doesn't sleep a lot, and he just works a lot.
Yeah, he doesn't sleep much. Biden slept. Biden apparently, there was a report out a couple of weeks ago that Biden worked 3 hours in the last 8 months he was in office. Right. I mean, I didn't realize it was that bad, but that's stunning. That's complete. And he was always, from the start of it, he took a lazy, now that I'm president, I don't have to do anything I don't want to do tack about this. And that's the way he treated it the whole time. So, I thought it was interesting.
Yeah, that's a pretty low threshold there, but I don't know that Congress sometimes can be accused of not working a lot either, but they do work a little. They work a little more. I still continue to remember, Roy Blunt, when he was a congressman, he just would report to the WIRA group, and he says, well, and this is when the Democrats were in control. He says, we named 56 post offices this week, and that was our big accomplishment.
Yeah, I worked on that committee that named the post offices. Yeah, I mean, it's a government, it's like government reform. All they have is DC and the Postal Service, and there's one more thing that they have oversight over, that they have legislative power over. They're the ones who introduced the legislation over. Everything else is just an oversight power, but they have oversight over pretty much anything in the government. So yeah, it's always pretty funny that, it was them, and it was DC and post offices. So we did a lot of post offices. You got to go look up, make sure that people didn't do anything bad. And, and then if they've agreed on a person, right. Then it's, you spend a lot of time listening to people praise that person and tell you how important they were, beautiful and wonderful and so forth. And it's a long and not efficient process, but they do get them named.
Yeah. I'm going to ask you as an aside too, because I know you've followed the Postal Service issues for a number of years.
Covered it for a long time.
Yeah. I mean, where are we going with the Postal Service? I mean, it still seems to be bloated. It continues to lose money.
The stuff I wrote about that they should do, they passed a bill that, when Biden was president and they had control of Congress, that eviscerated everything I'd ever suggested. Right. So they whatever's wrong with it is not Brian's fault, because the things Brian said to do did not get done. So, basically they've dumped their pension system into the whole government pension system after saying they wouldn't. They're way behind on their payments for that, and that's why they had to do it. They had to kind of socialize their losses. They've had 6 rate cases this year. I guess no one cares because no one mails anything anymore, but they just keep, applying to raise the price, and there's no one really to stop them anymore. So the price keeps going up, the mail keeps getting used less, and you know, if it wasn't a government entity, it would have already put itself out of business. I mean, it's gotten, you know, that it was like a Roman candle of poor physical behavior set off by the legislation Congress passed.
Yeah, you know, I mean, look, I've got a local post office that's probably a little more than a mile from my house. It's a nice little post office. It's in a strip mall kind of a thing, shopping center. That's where we have the PO box for accuracy and academia. So it's extremely convenient, but it is extremely underutilized. I mean, you know, we've been living in this area for, you know, right by that post office for the last 21 years. And the foot traffic into that post office has diminished dramatically.
Yeah, it's basically now you can order the stamps online. You know, there's not much to go to the post office for anymore.
Right. I know individuals who use stamps online. They just do it that way. They don't, you know, they don't do it any other way. I mean, and so I was there. I dropped by to check on the mail. I don't know. It was a few days before Christmas. There was nobody in the post office, and I'm thinking like, okay, I realize that, you know, they have a deadline of making sure it gets there like a regular service by early December or whatever. But I know that there are people who, you know, they let it slip, and then they're making the mad dash, and they'll do the next day delivery or 2-day delivery, and they'll pay up for it to get these packages delivered to their loved ones or whatever for Christmas. There's nothing like that going on there. And they did, it was on a closing list years ago, and it got a reprieve. And as much as I would hate to lose the convenience of that post office, it doesn't make a lot of sense to keep it open. You know, they usually have one person that we can see at the counter when they're, you know, sometimes you walk in there and you have to kind of, you know, got to ring a bell, or you got to kind of have to go, hello, are you there? You know, because, you know, and then they finally pop out or whatever. But it used to have 2 or 3 clerks all the time. But it's so inefficiently run.
Yeah, it's the delivery network itself is a strategic asset, and a not insignificant strategic asset. So when you say, oh, let's just shut it down, you got something there that you need to keep, right? And there are people who depend on it for medicines and so forth. But it needs another rethink. Obviously, putting it all in the government dole was not the right move, because then it just acted like a government dole thing, you know.
Right. I mean, the big problem, you talk about the delivery network. The big problem is that they are basically mandated to deliver to every address in America.
Right.
Which is not what UPS or FedEx have to do. They don't have to deliver to every address. You know,
right.
they set
up
a
lot of times, like at the end of the routes, like, you know, out west and so forth, the FedEx and whoever will pay the post office to do the last mile.
Right.
You know,
the last mile delivery. Right. Because it's more cost efficient to pay someone to do that than to send your stinking truck or whatever out there for a package.
Right.
So
these are the guys who do the inefficient task for you, right? And we're underwriting them. So you're essentially underwriting, you know, FedEx and UPS and those guys. Yeah. The universal service obligation, you know, that's constitutional. You're never going to get rid of it. You know, there's no, you know, people say, oh, we shouldn't do that anymore. Yeah, you shouldn't. You can say, you know, you don't have to do it every day. I don't see anything in there that says it has to be every day. So like one of the things that's talked about is 2 mail deliveries a week. Like if you're not, you could opt out, say, you know, if I'm taking medicine that I got to have every 3 days, right? It comes in the mail. Okay, that might not work for me, right? But most of us, if it only came 2 times a week, we wouldn't really care. It wouldn't matter. It wouldn't really change our lives much. So that's one of the things. Of course, that's like we were talking about earlier. That's another one that's been batted around for, you know, 25 years. I mean, people were talking about it when I started covering postal issues. So, you know, it's a suggestion that has been thought about but not enacted. So,
yeah, and I think, you know, I mean, you know, when I was younger, I mean, you know, I'd get a lot of mail. Every day was a lot of mail because I had I'd get, you know, stock reports or whatever, all the shareholders, you know, and so it would just jam my mailbox full of stuff that I was basically throwing away, because I'm not a guy who reads these annual reports from cover to cover. It's just not me. It's like I own a stock in a company, but like that was the downfall. Now it's all electronic, or you can access it electronically. So the volume of mail that I get now,
it's easier to ignore now.
Well, look, I mean,
it's true. I mean,
the post office, they have a great, they have a couple of great services. One is that, you can sign up for the mail scan, so it tells you every day, what mail is coming your way.
What you're getting, yeah.
Right, which is nice.
Lori has that.
Right, and then the other thing is that you can put the mail on hold until time if you're out of town, and that's really nice too. They do a pretty good job with that. But I know now that I can do that, and it just makes my life really easy. I can say, yeah. But if I got the mail twice a week, it wouldn't kill me. We've gone from an era where we were getting lots of checks in the mail. People were getting Social Security checks in the mail and things like that. That a lot of this is electronic, and it's not needed.
Bills too,
Right. Bills are a lot of bills are electronic. I saw a story that was posted by another friend of mine about how the post offices made yet another change, which is that they're not going to postmark the mail that they receive until it actually hits the system, sort of part of the system. So it may be an extra day or two delay depending upon where you are, which can have potential effect on you have to use a postmark as your definitive, like it was received by the post office at that time. That may not be the case anymore. Apparently went into effect on December 24th. But I'm like, like I said, I do most of my bill paying and everything like that is online. There's almost none of that.
The point of that is, it's like if you within X amount of miles, they're supposed to deliver in one day, and X amount of miles 2 days, X amount of miles 3 days. So if you don't declare, if you hold off on declaring that you've received it, that clock doesn't start running. So that's what they're trying to do, is that way they can brag about on-time delivery rates and so forth. So it has gotten, they've changed the floors of post offices now. There's the machines that process bills and so forth. There are very few of them now. There's more, circulars. There's more advertising, because that's mainly what's moving in the mail now.
Right. Okay. So enough of that aside. One more international thing, kind of, is just that the Venezuelan boat quarantine has had a delicious side effect of pinching Cuba.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I love it. I mean, I think this is. I didn't really think about it, but I think that's great.
Yeah, they're suing for peace. Like, hey, you guys, go easy on that. Well, don't base your economy on your narco terrorist neighbor. The other one is it doesn't appear like, I guess there was a story in the New York Times in the last day or so that saying that one of the boats they found, they blew up. The only thing that was on it was weed. There's no coke, no fentanyl or whatever. And you go read the story, and it's a long story in the New York Times, and the sources are like the wives of the sailors. What are they going to say, right? No one who knows what was on there says that, right? And the government says this is one is like it used to be. You had the government saying one thing and the journalists saying the other. That was at least 50-50, and you're inclined to believe that the government was probably lying. Well, now it's flipped so far the other way that you're inclined to think the government's the one telling the truth, right? The administration's the one telling the truth, because there's the media has been caught in so many just direct lies about the administration.
Yeah, well, just like I said, I think I don't have any problem about pinching Cuba this way at all.
No, I don't either.
Yeah. Okay, we'll continue moving on here. So now we're building warships, or we'll try to get the warships back up and running, and it'll be, imagine this, Trump class. How many things will be named after Donald Trump by the end of 2028?
Yeah. It could be a lot. This would be called the Trump, what do you call it? Accuracy in America. Accuracy in Trump's America.
Hey, look, if he wants to throw a little bit of money, I'll read.
Yeah, that's right. We call it whatever you want, buddy.
I'll do your bidding. Show me the money.
That's right. That's right. I don't know if this class of ships will ever get built. I think the Navy is kind of going in the other direction. Their last big class of ships they wanted to buy were like, what do they call, littoral ships, where they're small and they can operate right near the shore. They don't have to be in deep water, right? So you can like fight land battles from them, so to speak. I think the aircraft carriers or the big slow ships now are vulnerable targets, right? The Iranians kind of exposed that. We've had to learn how to protect them, right? Because the ship's better. And so, if you sell that ship now and you look at like what's going on off of Venezuela, the big ship is surrounded by, 10 or 15 smaller ships. So, it's like putting all your eggs on that basket is not that big a thing. I don't know. I think, this is what they'll talk about for a while and not do, is my guess.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds good. Kind of question the need for that and just the viability of it. I mean, it's not like you can just build this warship. I mean, you've got to have, there's so much infrastructure, and we're not doing that stuff anymore. We got some shipbuilding.
We passed some the other day, the old Ingalls shipyard down on the Mississippi Gulf Coast, but we can build ships, but do we build them? We're not as many as we used to. You're right about that. Not nearly as many as we used to. And, is that the kind of ship we want to build, right? Do we want to put all those eggs in that big vulnerable basket? So, I don't know. I don't know. I don't think this will happen. I don't blame him for trying, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's somewhat of a sports metaphor in here too, which is just like, you will probably go for the faster, more nimbler athlete rather than the big hulking guy, depending, I mean, you still need your big linemen and stuff like that, but even speed there now is becoming, something that they look at. I mean, athletes have just improved so much over the last 20, 30 years that we have a different class of athletes playing all kinds of sports.
Right.
And, but those faster, nimbler guys, they can do so much more than the big guys who just kind of plod along.
Right.
General.
That's what, there's a lot of complaints about the NBA about people say, oh, they don't play any defense. Well, they do to the extent they can catch people, but it's like, you got to catch them to guard them,
That's a good point.
That's one of the things that's really happened is it's got to be such a speed game. And speed has become so valued in that sport that it's hard for other things to break through, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, you're gonna have a guy like, not to get too, like Luca. Okay, I mean, like people would always say, oh, he's just, he's too slow, but all this kind of stuff. But the guy is an incredible basketball player.
Yeah,
he's an impact basketball player. I mean, yeah. And so. He's showing that, look, I've got skill sets that are still needed and still valued. I've got 4 other guys on the court, that are going to be out there chasing the other guys. But you're right. I mean, those guys have become so fast that it's, it's speed against speed. It's amazing to watch things on the court, on the football field, whatever. They are just they're just gifted athletes. And so it's just changed the nature of sports overall. All right. So today is the day where the Obamacare enhanced subsidies, and I want to emphasize, these are enhanced subsidies. These are not all subsidies. As the Democrats have been, just confusing the whole issue, right? I mean, they want to make it you think that it's everything when it's only a portion of the subsidies that are going away. It's the portion of the subsidies that they put into place.
Right. Well, I mean, they put the whole thing into place. No Republican ever voted for Obamacare at any point.
Yeah.
So I mean, this is their problem. And so what happens is it doesn't work. The math doesn't work, which we tried to tell them at the time. You're creating risk pools that don't really exist, and the math will catch up to you at some point. So now what you have is to make these plans quote affordable, the government has to essentially pay 40-50% of the premiums for middle class people, right? This is not a poverty program, right? This is everybody's part of this. So if you bought your insurance like this, like you say you did, they're people like you are subsidizing your health insurance. And what the Republicans are saying is, the thing doesn't work, and we can keep throwing billions at it, but it's, you're going to be back here every year begging and making these, all these accusations about, robbing people and this and that and the other, when, the truth of the matter is what you're suggesting doesn't work, and it's not ever going to work, right? The formula doesn't work. So throwing good money after bad does not make any sense. We finally made a stand, and we withstood a 35-day government shutdown, longest government shutdown ever.
43, I think.
43, I'm sorry. So to preserve this principle that, like, we shouldn't be paying for health insurance premiums for the middle class. Like, at some point, I think most Americans are fine with, and this is, goes for a lot of our programs that are up getting questioned now. SNAP, for instance, SNAP, you say, should we pay for food for the poorest 5% of people in the country? Most Americans are like, yeah, if you're the poorest 5% of the country, there's probably something systemic. You can't work. All right. You're not educated. You don't speak the language, whatever. You're old, you're hurt, you're whatever. Okay. Most Americans, okay. All right. It's probably just cheaper to give those guys some food stamps. Right. But, you're up to covering 35% of the country. 35% of the country is not in dire poverty, right? Those people can feed themselves, right? So that is what we're saying. It's like you took these programs, you took advantage of them, and they're no longer just charity anymore. They're now, something completely different. So, they're now just like you're buying votes, right? Basically. And so this is kind of the buying votes-iest one of them all, right? Because you're reaching people over 50% now. They're more than, they're in the top half of earners, right? You're subsidizing their premiums, right? And, we finally had the courage, Republicans finally had the courage to say no and to back it up and to live through a shutdown, take all the slings and arrows and come out unscathed. And now these guys want to undo it again. Like, they can whine all they want, but, go buy some other insurance. And I think as soon as it becomes clear that things are not going to change and Obamacare is not going to be the cheapest insurance anymore, that a lot of people are going to get out of it, right? They're going to go find something else that more fittingly meets their needs and they can afford, right? It's like, it's not out there because the government subsidizes it. It's the same as like the college loans. If you want the price of college to go down, quit lending people money to go to college. If they don't have as big a pile to spend to go to college, the price of college is going to come down, or else the college is going to be empty, right? There's no two ways that could work. No other way that could work.
Yeah, no, I mean, on the college part is like, it's not really a free market because you've got this loan thing out there that basically distorts the entire market. It's like, oh, I don't have the money, but these guys will lend me the money so I can go. But there's no incentive at all for the colleges to actually compete on price.
Right. And so the follow on to that is, they don't ever commit, right? The price is never going to come down. And, Biden now has, he said, you don't really have to pay back your college loans. So now when people borrow that money, they do it with a not unreasonable expectation that they won't ever have to pay it back, right? I'll just wait. I'll just forego it as long as I can. And when they come up to me, I'll just put it off some more until, some Democrat gets in and says, we're forgiving all the college loans.
Yeah.
I mean, what a travesty. He ruined that. You can't have college loans anymore. It's got to stop, because you can't have all these people borrowing money with the expectation they won't have to pay it back.
That's right. I mean, Obamacare is basically what is it? Isn't it kind of like the whole drive by the liberals for a single payer system? You
Yeah,
know, right? I mean, that's
ruin
what the
everything else, destroy all the other options. So that's the only choice. And it's like,
right.
no,
So I
it's
mean,
still the worst choice. We're still
right,
not doing it.
right. And I think about it, so much, the 2024, which was the last year I was in the subsidy program before Medicare kicked in. So for the 8 months, I was getting subsidies, and my wife she'd already converted to Medicare earlier in the year, so she wasn't on the plan anymore. Uh, that I paid about $1,700 for those 8 months, while the overall premium was came to 12, it came to over $13,000, right? It's like, in what world did I deserve that, except for the fact that they were giving it to me? And it's like, I'm
Right.
not an idiot. I'm going to take it because it's offered to me, and I actually technically qualified for the program. And I mean, the bands were so wide anyway. I mean,
Right.
when they enhanced those benefits, they just started covering, a wide swath of people
Right.
that
And
really
that's
didn't that
it's
could
not,
afford it.
you tell me you're trying to help the very poor, the poorest of the poor. Okay. Let's work together and help the poorest of the poor. But that's not what's going on, right? We're helping some of the richest of the rich, and that's it. And there's no end to it with these guys. There's no end to how much government spending. And it's the same like what's going on in Minnesota, and now they want, oh, we should have daycare. We're the only country in the free world that doesn't have daycare paid for by government. Well, look what happens when we try to do it, right? People just rip it off. Like they've ripped off more than they spent properly. More than half the money is ripped off. So, no, stop all that. Stop it.
Well,
Amen.
my wife says, because we see this around our area, maybe you see it around your area too, is that the government has this kind of like subsidized adult daycare program, and so a lot of communities, churches, will get together, and they will actually create this, and this happens at least what we've seen so far in the Asian community. Um, my wife's late aunt was in one of these programs, and they would just, they took care of her kind of during the day, just programs. They fed her, they did games, activities, or whatever. She had a subsidized apartment. But near us, every time I go up 270 back towards my house, if I just before I get off my exit, every time I can look over at this one area, and there are probably at least a dozen, if not more, adult daycare buses for a Chinese church thing that's run there. And my wife's like, who needs this many buses? How big is this program? How much money are they getting?
That's right.
Right?
That's
You
right.
know, but the government is saying, yeah, sure, this is our program. We'll pay you for this. That's fine. Problem with, and as I said, problem in Minnesota and the Somali community is that they completely ripped off the government. And that this is just a microcosm of a bigger problem.
Right. That's right. And it's like this, either there's total oversight and a program is run totally efficiently, or there's no oversight and the program is run completely inefficiently. There doesn't seem to be any middle ground. It's like once people discover that it's not being supervised, what is the limit on? It's certainly not on the supply of government money, right? There's all that they can lay their hands on. So what is the limit on them ripping it off?
Right. Okay. Well, another subject, TPUSA, Charlie Kirk's organization, now Erica Kirk's organization, had a big meeting. It was in Arizona, right? I believe. And there was a little bit of there was some backbiting going on there. Ben Shapiro, Steve Bannon, some others. It wasn't a complete like conservative love fest. Thoughts about that? Did they invite too many people? Was that what was the purpose if you have these people fighting criticizing each other openly like that?
I think they had all been invited previously, so you would have had to uninvite them, which would have been even a bigger problem. And Charlie's point was always that, listen to all the voices, and, even the people I don't agree with and so forth. So it would have kind of gone against the spirit of Charlie, so to speak. But people need to realize that, like, in the real world, 5% of the population cares what Tucker Carlson or Ben Shapiro or Nick Fuentes or any of these people think, right? It's like most people live their lives. They barely know of these people. And, I'll tell you another thing is, like, all these guys, they look at this like, now you can leave TV and you can go to a podcast and whatnot, and you'll be just as known and prominent. No, like, people assume that you've gone off into the woods somewhere, right? No one knows who Megyn Kelly is anymore, where she goes, how she does her work, whatever. And she has a pretty well-watched podcast, right? But you're talking about very tiny numbers that these people, that they're, of all the people who are involved in this argument, and I'm kind of watching from afar, but of the people who are on a side and this guy's right and that guy's wrong, you're talking about a very tiny amount of people, but it is enough people to upset the apple cart, because the media is going to make a big deal out of it. The media is like, oh, well, they're unhappy with each other, they're disagreeing, that's great. It's Trump's fault. Some which way.
Well, I mean, that's the other thing too. I'm glad you said that, in a sense, because we're seeing all these people depart from CBS news because they don't like Barry Weiss coming in there and doing that. It's like, do they think they're going to get any more attention by leaving the network? I mean, they had a platform,
That's
but
right.
they leave, and who's going to care about them after that? They're going to get a following, but for every Megyn Kelly, there's just 10 other people out there who just can't make a living anymore out of that. They're just forgotten.
Right. They're writing for Patreon or whatever.
Right.
Big deal.
Right.
So, but the thing about that is, okay, so she kills this story, right? Which was, about the prison in El Salvador. Okay. And they're like, oh, she is, first of all, the absurdity of the argument that somebody is rigging the game for Trump. Someone in the media is rigging the game for Trump. You can't be overlooked. Like, you're arguing something that is facially absurd, facially ridiculous. Okay. So second of all, she didn't, they don't, I lost my point, what I was saying. We're talking about the Barry Weiss, right? Okay. So the second of all, the government gave them three sets of comments, answers to sets of questions that they submitted. Then they get on there and they do the trash job and they say the government refused to comment. Like, no, they didn't. They gave you 3 quotes and you didn't use them. You didn't incorporate their view into the story at all, because it interrupted your hatchet job, right? And, it wasn't hatchet enough. So, she just caught him in a typical, business as usual leftist media lie and called him out on it. And more power to her. I don't think she's for Trump. I think it's going to be a long time before anybody can argue that CBS is for Trump.
Yeah, I think that's true. It's just, but the change at CBS, I mean, it's just kind of funny. I mean, liberals are like, oh, we're offended, we don't like this woman, and so they walk out. I'm like, okay, fine.
Adios. Yeah, like, you guys are not replaceable.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so we'll quickly wrap up here in the interest of time. Silver prices are at a level haven't been seen since like 1979. I remember as a young 21-year-old, forcing my father to take me to places to buy silver coins, for which right now, I don't even know where the heck they are, but I wish I could. If I find them, I will be cashing out, hopefully before it collapses. I should really be tearing apart the house and say, where are those stinking coins that, after I paid $30 or $40 an ounce for, went to 13, and now they're at 72 or whatever. And that now it's like, oh, look, I actually can make money off of this thing, but I don't know where they are.
Yeah, I think it's my cousin said the other day that the Chinese have cornered the silver, and that's why it's going up and whatever. I don't know, man.
Well, there was a report that they're going to put some more restrictions on silver, which may start to give a higher floor to silver going forward. So we'll see. But I know we've got a cabinet, like almost everybody our age in America, who's been around long enough, whose family had silverware when we were growing up.
Mhm.
I know I have my family silverware, and I'm like, we never use it, right?
Right.
It's been sitting unused for most of the last 20 years since we've been in this house.
It's to get you a nice vacation
Yeah, look, yeah,
down to cold Florida.
I don't have a lot of sentimental attachment to it. I should just go ahead and dump it, just collect what I can and move
There
on.
you
I have
go.
no idea what that would bring, but if I find a reputable dealer, or something like that, I think that's maybe where I'll go with that. Let's close with this real quick, because this goes back to your neck of the country, I thought it was a great story. So there is a town called Linden, Louisiana.
No, Minden starts with an
Minden.
M.
Okay. What did I say Linden for? Okay,
Hmm?
so it's Minden.
It's Minden. Yeah, it was a big story in the Shreveport paper when I was there.
Okay, so
they sold the company, and so the company,
they sold the company for like $1.7 billion. But what the owner did was that he put into the contract that they had to they were going to share, they were going to pay out $240 million to the employees. And they were going to do that directly. There was the one stipulation is that you had to remain with the company 5 years. It was going to be paid out over 5 years, unless you were over 65, for which you could take it and leave and retire if you wanted to. According to the Wall Street Journal, so there are some employees who grumbled that they weren't getting their full amount right away. But it was $443,000, give or take. Some longer serving people got more. People who weren't there got a little bit less. But it's an amazing story of a guy who just said, I want to reward my employees for all the hard work and for sticking with the company through ups and downs.
Right. That was a great story. And that's a part of the country where the people are not rich. And so, Minden's about 30 miles from Shreveport. It's like east of Shreveport. So very close by. And yeah, that was a huge story. And a lot of people, there's some people like, how do you gripe, right, about free money? But, somehow it happened. But yeah, I think it was a great thing that this guy did. And there's, not every company can do it, but some companies can. And, if you don't want to do it on that scale, then a smaller scale, but something that makes the employees feel like, their buy-in was rewarded, right? Because, most of these jobs that you do these days, you clock in for 40 hours a week and you don't do anything beyond what's required, you won't be successful, right? Most people, you have to add a little extra effort to make the thing work. So, when they do that, for the person who they helped to remember that and reward them, I think is good.
Yeah, I mean, I think the other thing that's funny about this thing too is just that these payments, if they were able to get the full payment, they owed a fair amount of taxes on that, which was a bit of a shocker. So it's like, maybe that's a good wake up call. It's like, our tax system still needs a lot of work.
It sure does. Yeah. And that's a good way to illustrate it too. I mean, I still say, if you want to fix the tax thing, quit withholding. Don't withhold. Like, you make everybody stroke a check every quarter or every month for your federal taxes, right? Because then you say, oh, wow, this is taken, not electronic payment, a check, a paper check. Then you say, well, help the mail, you'd have to mail it in, right? But then you see, like, this is how much I'm actually paying for this. Your take-home paycheck would grow, right? Because there's no more withholding. But, then you'd see, like, okay, what of all this stuff do we really need? Do we really need to be funding, daycare centers in Minnesota? Maybe Minnesota works out its own daycare problem, and therefore we don't care about their fraud. They want to give all the money to the Somalis to have, warehouses for daycare centers and no kids in the daycare center. That's their problem, right? So I agree with that.
All right. We'll let you skedaddle out of your hotel room. So everyone, thanks for joining us today. As always, please stay safe and stay well. Remember, we live in the greatest country in the world. Do not let anyone tell you otherwise. And always, God bless America. And we will see you next year.
That's right.